Welcome back to the Little Bang Discovery Club. I'm Wendy from Children's Discovery in Sydney. And just a reminder that the children are our junior discoverers doing all the thinking, and their grown-ups are there to help them as their lab assistants. If they need help with something, then please help them, but let the kids do the thinking. Now you might once again like to see what I do, set up an activity, pause the recording, and then go and try it for yourselves. Today's session is all about measuring and recording, which is something else that scientists do a lot of. Now, we finished last week with a collection, and I suggested you make a collection of your own, and I showed you some leaves. Now, I've got a few more collections to show you, which are inspired by what children have brought me along in past programs. So a popular thing for children to show is a collection of shells. So there are a few different shells in there. Another thing that children like to collect are sticks. And they also like to go out into the garden and collect some flowers. And while they're in the garden, they often find some stones. They also might find some feathers, and these are getting a bit old-fashioned now, but they still exist. Postcards people send you from when they're away on holiday. So there's some ideas about some of the collections you might have had. Now children, I'd like you to talk to your grown-up and show them the favourite thing from what you've collected, and the biggest thing that you collected, and the smallest thing that you collected. So have a little chat with your grown-up about the collection that you've made. Hopefully you've all managed to find some items to put in your discovery box. So I hope you had fun doing your treasure hunt last week and you found some items to put in your discovery box. So what I'd like you to do now is to choose 5 items from your discovery box, put them out on the space in front of you and arrange them the longest at one end down to the shortest at the other end. So choose 5 things. You could choose something completely different to me. That's quite okay. So adults, let the children do the choosing and choose 5 things lined up longest down to shortest. Now I'd like you to point to your longest thing. So for me, the longest thing was my ruler, but you might have chosen something quite different. Now I'd like you to point to your shortest thing. And for me, my shortest thing was my fridge magnet. And now I'd like you to point to your middle thing. Now there's a special word for the middle thing, and that's called the median. So if you ever hear anyone talking about the median, they're talking about the middle thing. Now, that was quite an easy thing for us to do. We didn't actually have to do any measuring because we could easily compare just by looking at which was the longest down to which is the shortest. So we didn't actually do any measuring there, but we did do some comparing. Now, leave those things there because we're going to use them again soon. But now I'd like you to find your chopstick, if you've got one, or if you haven't got a chopstick, your big spoon. So see if you can find those things, and then I'm going to show you what to do with them. Now, with your chopstick or big spoon, we're not going to use them to eat with, we're going to use them to measure with, and we're going to measure your height. Now, this is one way of doing it. So count with me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So not quite 6 chopsticks tall. So after you've measured how tall you are in chopsticks or spoons, get your notebook, and grown-ups, you might need to help with this. So I'm nearly 6 chopsticks tall. So now might be a good time to pause the recording and to measure your height in chopsticks and then write it down. Now, scientists like to do things over and over again to check that they did it right the first time. So I'm going to check my height in chopsticks once more. Here we go, count with me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, nearly 8, but I was only nearly 6 chopsticks a few minutes ago. What's going on here? Have I suddenly grown? Or did I do it so badly the first time? This time I'm nearly 8 chopsticks. You're right, I'm tricking you. The first time I used this chopstick and that gave me a height of 6. The second time I used this much shorter chopstick. And that's why you don't normally measure your height in chopsticks. This is an informal measure and not all chopsticks are the same length. So what I'd like you to do now is to have a look in your discovery box and see if you can find something that might be better for measuring your height with than chopsticks. That it doesn't matter who's measuring, it'll be the same unit of measurement. So have a look in your discovery box, see what you can find, and then I'd like the grown-ups to measure their children in centimetres. So see what you can find in your discovery box that might help you measure in centimetres, then measure their height, and once again, write it down on your notebook. So what did you use to measure your height with? Did you use perhaps your ruler using the chopstick method and then added up all those centimetres? Or did you use your tape measure that might have looked like this to get how tall you were? That was probably the easiest way to measure your height. And were you surprised at how tall you are now? Talk to your grown-up about how much you've grown recently. Now, it was easy for us to look at things and compare how long they are, or to measure things and see how long they are, but it's not so easy to tell how heavy things are just by looking. So if you pick up your longest thing from your discovery box from before and your shortest thing from your discovery box and you put them in your hands, can you really tell which one's the heaviest just by feeling them and looking at them? Let's try and make a way of telling which one's heaviest that's a bit more accurate. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a balance. And what you need for this are 2 plastic cups, 2 big rubber bands, 2 pieces of string that are about 30 centimetres long, and your coat hanger. So either a coat hanger like this or a coat hanger like that, either one you can use. So if you don't have any of those things with you right at the moment, perhaps pause the recording and get them, and then I'll show you how to make your balance. So the first step to making your balance is to put your rubber bands onto the plastic cups. So that the rubber bands are up near the top. Now, using your pieces of string, you're going to tie a knot underneath your rubber band on one side for both of your plastic cups. Now the next step depends upon which type of coat hanger you've got. So if you've got a coat hanger like this with little hooks, you do it slightly differently to if you've got a coat hanger like this that doesn't have any little hooks. So let me show you what to do with this type first. So if you've got little hooks on your coat hanger, you can put your piece of string across the other side of the cup, tie a little knot, and then move the string so that it's evenly spaced like this, and then you can put it onto the little hook. So if you've got this type of coat hanger, you then do the other cup the same way. If you don't have little hooks on your coat hanger, then what you need to do is put this piece of string over the bottom of the coat hanger like that, and then tie it onto the rubber band. So that it's hanging over the bottom part of the coat hanger. So do that whichever way your coat hanger is. Make your cups so that they can hang on your coat hanger. So here I've got one all ready to go that I pop on here, and I pop on here, and then if I hold it by my finger, you can see at the moment the cups are balanced, they're hanging the same height. Now, what will happen when I put something into one side and nothing into the other? Talk to your grown-up. What do you think is going to happen if we put something into one side and not into the other side? Now, what will happen if we put something into both sides? Talk to your grown-up about what can happen when we've got a different thing in both sides of our balance. So what you can try now is your longest thing from your discovery box and your shortest thing from your discovery box. Now, which cup is going down more? If we look at our coat hanger, can you see how this side has dropped down a bit lower than that side? So the ruler is heavier than the magnet. So you're now going to test lots of things to see which is heavier, or will they balance and be both the same, so that at the bottom of our coat hanger stays level if they're balancing and they're both the same weight. But before you do, you need to have a guess first, because scientists always have a guess or make a prediction about what they think is going to happen. So some of the things that you might choose to test are some stones. You might choose to test some stones. I've got a couple of different stones here. They look about the same size, but what will happen when you put them in? Have a guess first. Which one do you think will be the heavier one? So that's something you might test. You might test some different sized spoons. Which one do you think will be the heavier one? Or will they be the same? You might test some different sized toys, or toys made from different materials. So this one's a metal one and this one's a plastic one. Which one do you think is going to be the heavier? Have a guess first. You might put in a banana and a peach. Which one do you think is going to be heavier? You might raid mum or dad's wallet for some different coins. Which coin do you think is going to be the heaviest coin? How many coins, how many 10 cents do you put in to balance with a 50-cent coin, for example? So there are some ideas, but let the children do some thinking. What would they like to test in their coat hanger balance? Now, when you've made your guess and you do your test, some of you might think, oh, I got that right, or oh, I got that wrong, but you didn't. In actual fact, in science, we don't usually talk about right or wrong. We talk about whether we got an expected result or an unexpected result. So make a note of the results that you got that were expected, the ones you thought were heavier that actually were, and the results that were unexpected. Okay, go and have some fun. doing some weighing. Now we're going to make something using our skills that we've just learnt with balancing. We're going to make a mobile. Now normally you would be provided with a kit that had pipe cleaners or chenille stems and some pop sticks and some string to make a mobile that looks like this. So if you've got those things at home, you can still do that. Make your chenille stems into different shapes, use your strings to tie them onto the small pop sticks, and then have a larger pop stick at the top, and you've made a mobile. But not all of you will have those things at home, so you might want to improvise using things like these. So here we've got a chopstick at the top, some pencils and some toys to make our mobile. Or instead of the chopstick at the top, you might like to use your coat hanger. And you don't have to use these sorts of toys. Other toys that you might use could be some animals or some little soft toys. Whatever you would like to use, trying to make a mobile that is a couple of levels. So we've got a big level at the top and then a couple of other levels that our items are dangling from. So these pieces of string are about 30 centimetres in length and you need 7 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And you need 2 straight things for the strings to tie onto. So that's something for you to do before next session. And as well, before next session, I'd like you to try and do lots of measuring. So you could measure how long things are using a tape measure or a ruler. You could do some timing, perhaps if you've got a timer, or with a phone or a clock with a second hand, perhaps time how long you're in the bath or the shower. That's something you could time. Lots of things you can time. Have some more thoughts about that. And you can also use your balance that you've made, your coat hanger balance, to see which thing is heavier. Or you might have at home a kitchen scales or bathroom scales that you could put things on. But before you do that, have a guess, make a prediction. Which item do you think is going to be the heavier one? Now next week we're going to be doing more experiments, and you will need a boiled egg or some grapes. So for one of the experiments you'll need a boiled egg or some grapes. So grown-ups, can you boil the egg before we start the next session so it's all ready to use? And you're also going to use a couple of the things that we spoke about last time, like blue tack and salt. Okay, so lots of measuring this week, and make sure you record what you measure, because it can be really hard to remember what you measured if you don't write it down. Okay, have a lot of fun doing some science together, measuring and recording.